Need a pro to fix that emergency leak? Maybe you're looking to set your seasonal tasks on autopilot. Angie can handle all that and more. Expert pros, hundreds of home projects, clear pricing, and the easiest way to book and pay in seconds. This is Angie, your home for everything home. Download the app today.
Happening now, breaking news. U.S. troops are on the move and expected to deploy in Afghanistan within 48 hours as more cities fall to the Taliban. The crisis in Kabul and the pressure on the White House are escalating this hour. Also tonight, the FDA is on the brink of authorizing COVID-19 booster shots for people with weakened immune systems.
Is that my nose?
That announcement could happen very soon. And after a long, bitter battle, Britney Spears' father says he intends to step down as the pop star's conservator. Does it mean Britney will be freed at last? Welcome to our viewers in the United States and around the world. Wolf Blitzer is off today. I'm Jim Acosta, and you're in the Situation Room.
Oh, I just watched the car.
This is CNN Breaking News.
We are covering the crisis in Afghanistan.
Let me just say this real quick. All right, first off, all right, fuck it. Okay, first off, this is cool. This actually works out. So, I found a way to be able to play my shit. What are you doing? What are you doing? Oh, bike. I never go this way. Why did I go this way? Wow, that's why I don't go this way. Alright, well, let's rant then. Oh shit, you can actually see my... I have to adjust that. So he's crossing that way. There's a car coming that way. I want to turn. That one doesn't have his blinker on. We got a bus coming that way. No one's coming this way. There we go. Oh, well, yeah. All I gotta do is make an adjustment to the camera mount, but this wide angle is capturing everything. So my 2 days off, you know, I had bought the iPhone and I complained about it, and I'm getting used to the iPhone. I'm getting used to it. There are still things that it can't do, whatever. I ended up buying the Apple Watch like I said I was gonna buy. I got it at Best Buy for like, I don't know, like only like $250 because we bought one of those open box ones. So that's cool. And the phone not being able to unlock when I'm at work because I have to wear a mask at work was really bothering me, and the other phone, my Pixel, was able to do it. But like Steve said, as long as I'm wearing my Apple Watch, it senses my eyes and it knows I'm wearing a mask, and it's like, well, since you're wearing the watch, we know it's you, we trust you, so it'll still do the facial unlock. So there we go. There's the positive on that. And then, like I said, Steve taught me how to be able to play my Spotify in the background while I record. And instead of just shoving my phone into the seat and recording from there, now we're on a phone mount that I bought at like Marshall's for like $7 or whatever. But I do see this. I see this. I see I need to make an adjustment to the mount. But other than that, this is a good view. And this is actually my first time using the back cam, like the main camera. This is supposed to be the baller camera. So this is my first time using the baller camera for my work drive while playing music, and I still have adjustability. So that's one thing I didn't have on the Pixel that this does have. So I'm not going to only discredit this thing. I'm going to credit it, you know, give it credit where credit is due. And it does indeed. Oh man. Alright, whatever. We'll go behind this guy. it does indeed record in 3 different settings. This is the wide angle, which I really like because you can see everything. So you're seeing what I'm seeing, basically, minus this thing. So I gotta get rid of that. Or I gotta move it. I'll find a new position. This is like a test, but we do have Spotify in the background. And I control Spotify with my watch. I don't know what happens if I pause and unpause. That might mess up the drive. When we get closer, I'll see what happens if I pause it. But I believe I can back out of the Spotify app on my phone and be able to check text messages. Okay. Lock, watch, swipe down. There's Evelyn. I feel like I saw it in the S2. I'm not talking to Google with that.
Administration that in a president had been clear they believe this was the right move and they didn't plan on shifting force. But the reality was the facts on the ground, the deterioration on the battlefield, left the administration with
No, it's okay. I found it. It was in the garage.
the president continued the meeting with top national security officials. He was presenting.
See, we just replied to her. So that's cool.
They stood on the battlefield and
So now I have use of my phone while I drive. So that's a thing. Yeah, so everything's all right. Oh, I was about to rant about my energy drink. My NOS, I opened it way earlier when I was playing Xbox. And I knocked it over by my chair, cleaned it. Then I put it on the table when I was leaving for work. Put it on the table. Proceeded to knock it over from there. Then I put it on top of the View. And I was like, all right, well, it's on top of the View. I need to go back inside because I was looking for this phone mount. And I found the phone mount. I got excited. And I just hopped in the View and took off. And I came to a stop sign. And I saw, well, it was on video. I seen water coming down the fucking windshield. And I was like, wait, what? And my initial thoughts were, because I just got the car washed, or I just took it to the car wash, I thought it was water still. But I left my fucking NOS on the roof. So it was my NOS. And I still have a little bit of NOS left. So yeah. Alright. Let's just listen to the news and drive.
Very dangerous time. The deterioration is very concerning inside the administration.
Yeah, conditions are changing on the ground, to say the least. All right, Phil Mattingly, thanks so much for that. And joining me now is General Wesley Clark, the former NATO Supreme Allied Commander. He's a CNN military analyst. Also with us, CNN National Security Analyst Peter Bergen, who knows that part of the world so well. He has a new book on the rise and fall of Osama bin Laden. He conducted the first TV interview with the Al-Qaeda leader back in 1997. I remember that interview well. General Clark, let me start with you. I want you to watch what President Biden had to say about this withdrawal just a month ago.
The jury is still out. But the likelihood there's going to be the Taliban overrunning everything and owning the whole country is highly unlikely.
How could the Biden administration and the president get caught by surprise like this? It appears they've been caught by surprise.
No, I couldn't explain it because it's always been clear to everyone that once you actually committed to withdrawal, set the date, the troops come out, that you will supercharge the Taliban. They'll have a sense of momentum, a belief that their long-held faith in ultimate victory is about to be realized. And in Afghanistan, people change sides very, very quickly. We saw this in 2001 when we went in there and how quickly the Taliban regime collapsed. But the truth is that what's happening today is a consequence of 20 years of American misjudgments, of poor prioritizations and failed policies. And For the Biden administration, I think they'd reached the end of the road. It was clear that they weren't going to be able to create or help create an Afghanistan government that had the support of its people. And without that government support, its military did not have the support of the people. And this is the consequence of it. It's painful, it's tragic.
And it sounds like the Taliban has been lying in wait for this, Peter Bergen. Let me ask you, what does it say that President Biden is now deploying 3,000 troops to stabilize things so they can withdraw 2,500 troops?
It's befuddling, and it's a predictable debacle and an unforced error. And the fact is, Clarissa is reporting that they may take Kandahar as we speak. This is the birthplace of the Taliban. This is where the Taliban was first created. The second most important city in Afghanistan. Another thing I'm looking at, Jim, is they seize Ghazni, which is about 100 miles from Kabul. It sits on the crucial Kabul to Kandahar highway. You're cutting off the capital, and you're cutting off the second most important city. And Barbara referred to this estimate that she reported on about 30 to 60 days for Kabul to fall. I would revise that estimate, given what we've just seen. This could happen in days, and I think these actions of the Biden administration speak for themselves. You don't send 3,000 people in. That's not a minor evacuation force. We unfortunately, this could all play out in the next 2 or 3 days where we just see a complete and total collapse.
That would be a highly dangerous situation, General Clark. Our correspondent on the ground, Clarissa Ward, there in Kabul, reports there's a feeling of sheer terror among Afghan civilians. What message does this send to the Afghan people?
That's right. And all over Afghanistan, there are people who are no doubt calculating what should they do. Can they make a deal and survive under the Taliban? Are they marked for execution? Is there a way out? Will the Americans help them? So you can be sure that there are hundreds of thousands of Afghans who are in panic mode because of this. It is a predictable outcome, and once it started to unfurl like this, there was only one way to stop it, and that was with a pullback and a way to reinforce the commitment by the political leaders that they're going to work together and stay there and fight it out. And it didn't happen. And maybe it was impossible. Once an army like this starts to lose after all these years and all that money put into it, the morale collapses extremely quickly. So for the United States, we've got to protect our own people. We've got to do what we can to salvage what's left of this mission, if there is any mission left of that government that's in Kabul. And there's going to be some really tense days. I think Peter's right. This is going to happen much, much faster than what you're seeing in the official predictions.
And that'll be extraordinary to watch, Peter Bergen. And I can just see the steam coming out of the ears of the people over at the White House as they're listening to this discussion. President Biden has been arguing that there will never be ideal conditions for withdrawal. What do you make of that argument, that perhaps some of this was inevitable?
We're keeping 2,500 troops in Iraq, and we just relabeled them non-combat troops. Exactly the same time that we made this decision to pull out all the U.S. troops from Afghanistan. So it's kind of incoherent. This was unnecessary, and all we had to say is our commitment to Afghanistan is long-standing, and everything that we've just seen over the last 7 weeks wouldn't have happened.
General Clark, do you think that the president should reconsider what he's doing here? The time to reconsider?
I think the president's first responsibility is the security and safety of the American citizens that are there and the other members of the international community, and that's what he's got to be focused on now. Can he salvage anything in this mission? I'm not sure that it's possible at this point because so much is unraveled. But I would say this to what Peter said. Actually, this process started a long time ago. Even when we had the 8 to 10,000 Americans there were reports of the Taliban building strength, taking towns, holding towns, Afghan units not able to withstand the pressure, people changing sides. So this wasn't just something that snapped when President Biden made the decision. This was something that had been coming apart for a long time. One of the key trigger points was when President Trump decided he would announce the pullout and try to do negotiations. And you simply are not, it's just not possible to do negotiations the way they were being proposed, when you're also pulling out and losing your leverage. The only remaining leverage we had was, gee, if you guys are nice and let us leave quietly, maybe we'll give you some assistance later on, and we won't be so mean to you diplomatically and economically. But that's not their concern, the Taliban concern. They want the momentum. They want to take this right now. So I think that, this has to play its way out. Then we've got to figure out the next moves on this. This was a long time in coming. And I know, it's going to be very easy politically to blame the Biden administration for this. But when they came in and took a look at it, I don't think they had many alternatives. This was not Iraq. There was not a government there that had the ability to withstand the support. And so maybe we will have to go back in. But I think that's a separate, entirely different conversation.
All right, General Wesley Clark, Peter Bergen, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Just ahead, the first FDA authorization of COVID booster shots is expected very soon for a limited number of Americans. When will all of us be eligible? We're in the situation.
Angie's List is now Angie. Whether you need help with routine maintenance or you're planning your dream renovation, Angie connects you with top local pros who can get the job done right. It's easy to see reviews, compare quotes, and instantly book hundreds of projects. Plus, when you book and pay through Angie, they'll cover your project up to the full purchase price. Plus limited damage protection with their happiness guarantee. Check out Angie.com. And for more on the happiness guarantee, go to Angie.com/happiness-guarantee.htm.
This podcast is supported by First Republic Bank. First Republic has made it their mission to understand their clients' needs and provide them with an unparalleled level of service. With their relationship-based approach to banking, First Republic provides tailored solutions to individuals and businesses with their financial needs at any stage of life. Whether it's opening a savings account, buying your first home, or starting a family, First Republic's commitment to personal service is designed to change the way that you feel about banking. See how putting clients first always comes first at First Republic Bank. Visit firstrepublic.com today to learn more. That's firstrepublic.com, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Tonight, as the Delta variant rages across the U.S., the FDA is on the brink of authorizing the first COVID-19 booster shots for some people with compromised immune systems. CNN's Nick Watt has our pandemic report.
This is Franklin, Tennessee. After a school board vote for a mask mandate, members, doctors, nurses harassed. The president saw this video.
Our healthcare workers are heroes. To the mayors, school superintendents, educators, local leaders who are standing up to the governor's politicizing mask protection for our kids, thank you. Thank you as well. Thank God that we have heroes like you. And I stand with you all.
Thousands of kids, largely in the South, already sent home back to virtual school. Why? Exposure and or high case counts where they live.
Masking is, I think a lot of us would say, something pretty small that we can do in order to prevent all these negative consequences.
Nearly 99% of the US population lives in counties where people should be wearing masks indoors, according to new CDC guidance. The FDA expected very soon to greenlight an additional vaccine shot for the immunocompromised.
That actually encompasses a relatively small proportion of the population, around 3% or so.
So, what about boosters for the rest of us?
We believe sooner or later you will need a booster for durability of protection. We are preparing for the eventuality of doing that.
Meantime, more than 75,000 people are now in the hospital fighting the virus. Look at that line climb over the past month. That's a problem.
Florida and Texas alone have accounted for nearly 40% of new hospitalizations across the country.
Triage tent just went up again outside LBJ Hospital in Houston, Texas.
Things are terrible. My hospitals are full.
Filling fast in Mississippi.
If we continue that trajectory within the next 5 to 7 to 10 days, I think we're going to see failure of the hospital system in Mississippi.
anger in Alabama that the virus is surging.
Until we get enough people vaccinated, we're just going to continue to see this revamp its ugly face.
Now, today, San Francisco became the first major city in America to say that if you want to work at or go into a bar, restaurant, gym, or theater, you have to prove full vaccination. And down here in Los Angeles, the city attorney right now is preparing a very similar ordinance. Jim.
Those are huge moves indeed. All right, Nick Watt, thank you so much for that report. Let's bring in the former acting director of the CDC, Dr. Richard Besser. Dr. Besser, thanks so much as always. The FDA, as you know, is expected to soon authorize a coronavirus booster shot for some immunocompromised people. Who do you think should be in line first for this, and how quickly should this happen?
Yeah, this is a relatively small group of people, as Dr. Fauci was saying, people who have problems with their immune system, where rather than thinking about it as a booster, it's really part of their primary series. They didn't get the full protection that most people got from just 2 shots. I expect that over time there will be a recommendation for boosters for others, but the good news, Jim, is that these vaccines are holding up very well in terms of preventing severe disease and preventing hospitalizations and deaths. There are breakthrough cases, and there's where the recommendations around masks and other steps become so important.
And Dr. Fauci says inevitably everyone could need a booster shot based on what we know about long immunity from these vaccines. When do you think widespread booster shots might become a reality? What do you think?
Yeah, there's a challenge here. While we are seeing a slight decline in immunity in terms of mild infections, most of the world hasn't received vaccine to prevent severe disease, hospitalization, and death. And in terms of vaccine equity, you really want to see these vaccines spread across the globe. It also provides protection here because while there is widespread transmission of this virus around the globe, new variants are going to emerge. And so far, the variants that have emerged are also covered by the vaccine, but there's no guarantee that the next variant that we see isn't one that our vaccines don't work for. So there's a trade-off. I expect we'll see a recommendation for boosters in this country before the end of the winter for sure, but we want to make sure we're doing a lot more than we currently are to provide vaccines to other countries.
Yeah, we almost half of this country is not fully vaccinated yet, so a lot of work to be done on that front. And as mask wearing continues to be politicized, as you know, more than 400 students are now quarantined in Palm Beach County, Florida, after just 2 days of school. Is this the result of a dangerous policy and action down there in Florida?
Well, I think this is going to be a very challenging school year. And the reason for that is the Delta variant is so contagious. Last year, we were able to get away with cohorting children. So if a case arose in one classroom, the chances it would go to another classroom weren't great if you kept those classes apart. With this strain, we're not going to be so lucky. So I think we're going to see a lot of schools shutting down. We can reduce the chances that happens by encouraging people to wear masks. Even if your governor is saying there can't be a requirement, that doesn't prevent a parent from saying, you know what, I want my child to be as safe as possible. I want to help protect the teachers and the staff. I'm going to send my child to school with a mask.
Right, you don't have to wait for them to put a mask mandate in. If you're a parent, you can have your kid go off to school with a mask. You can do that as a parent. All right, Dr. Richard Besser, thanks so much, as always, for those great insights. We appreciate it. Coming up, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi calls out Republican attacks on Capitol Police as former President Trump fuels the fire, as always. There's increasing concern about the safety of U.S. lawmakers as former President Trump and some of his congressional allies spread lies about the Capitol insurrection using inflammatory language. CNN's Brian Todd is working the story for us. Brian, Trump and some of his supporters are attacking the very officers who protected the Capitol.
They are doing that, Jim, and they're not only inaccurate with these remarks, they're outright dangerous, and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has frankly had enough. Security concerns ramped up tonight on Capitol Hill. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi furious with Republicans who she says have attacked U.S. Capitol police officers who fought rioters on January 6th. Pelosi's office issued a statement today characterizing remarks from former President Donald Trump as, quote, vile. Trump said in a statement he had spoken to the mother and husband of Ashley Babbitt, the rioter who was shot and killed by a U.S. Capitol Police officer as she tried to crawl through a broken window near the Speaker's lobby on January 6th. Trump said Babbitt had been, quote, murdered, even though the officer was cleared of any criminal wrongdoing. And Trump said of the unnamed officer, quote, we know who he is. There must be justice.
I do believe that officer is at risk, could be at risk. His family could be at risk if his name gets out in the way the president is suggesting.
Speaker Pelosi called the Republican attacks on officers, quote, disgusting, said it's time for House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy to, quote, get off his hands and stand up to Republicans who've gone after the officers. No response yet from McCarthy. Pelosi is especially upset with characterizations like this one from Arizona GOP Congressman Paul Gosar.
Director Ray, do you know who executed Ashley Babbitt?
No, I don't know.
This comes as we get disturbing new information on threats to members of Congress, which new Capitol Police Chief Tom Manger tells Wolf have increased dramatically in recent months.
We typically, just a couple of years ago, had around 6,000 or 7,000. This year, I think we'll be up close to 10,000 threats that we're investigating.
Manger says his department is working with local police departments across the U.S. to investigate threats and coordinate protection for members of Congress. A former Secret Service agent says that's a massive undertaking, since the Capitol Police and their partners have to spread out all over the country to protect members while they're in their home districts.
They have to look at telephone records. They have to look at IP addresses. They have to understand where these threats are coming from, identify that potential hostile actor, go interview them, interview friends and family and associates of that individual to fully assess, does this person have the tendency or the ability to engage in violent acts against this particular political leader.
Now, what worries the security experts we spoke to is the possibility that the threats to members of Congress will only escalate from here. As former Secret Service agent Jonathan Wackrow says, so many potential attackers, including violent extremists, are hiding in plain sight and could be incited to act by a statement like the one former President Trump just made about that one Capitol Police officer. Jim?
All right, Brian, Todd, thanks so much for that report. Let's dig deeper now with former FBI Deputy Director and CNN Senior Law Enforcement Analyst Andrew McCabe. Is the author of The Threat, How the FBI Protects America in the Age of Terror and Trump. And, you know, when the former president calls for justice against the officer who shot and killed Ashley Babbitt, who was climbing through a window that day, as we all saw in the video, how dangerous is that when you see the former president engaging in this kind of rhetoric, saying we know who you are and so on?
It's incredibly dangerous, Jim. We know this for a fact. This isn't something we're theorizing about, right? We have seen before the impact that the president's words have on his most diehard and emotional supporters. We've seen an attempted bombing plot, right, by a domestic extremist who was arrested some years ago, who said he was following the directions of President Trump. We all saw the insurrectionists on January 6th acting what many of them have said they thought they were following his direction. And let's face it, when he says, "We know who you are," that's a threat. That's the same sort of language that a mob boss or a drug kingpin would use to threaten a subordinate or
even though he can try to hide behind the language and say that.
Absolutely. That is a threat. Those words are threatening. So you have the former president of the United States threatening members of law enforcement.
Incredible.
It's just outrageous.
It is outrageous, and this comes as the Capitol Police Chief says they're seeing heightened threats against lawmakers. So when Trump does this, does that add fuel to the fire and potentially lead to situations where you could see threats in other parts of the country? A lot of these members are on their brakes right now.
That's absolutely right. And, you know, we know that August has been a period of particular sensitivity for these sorts of threats across the domestic extremist community. DHS reminded us of this really concerning threat last week with the warning that they put out. So we are in a period of great sensitivity. It's also the month that the members go home for vacation, campaigning, and all the things that they do. So you've got a dispersed group of potential targets. You've got a heavily taxed police force, the Capitol Police, that are responsible for protecting those members wherever they are. It's a very, very tenuous situation.
And do you think Kevin McCarthy needs to tell these lawmakers, cut it out? Tell the former president, cut it out when it comes to this sort of rhetoric?
Well, he should, right? He's the leader. And when you are the leader and your troops, your members, whoever those folks might be, are acting irresponsibly, are creating situations of greater threat to your own membership and to others, it's time for that leader to step up and get his folks in there.
All right, Andrew McCabe, thanks so much for those insights. As always, we appreciate it. And just ahead, the Georgia Secretary of State responds to chilling revelations about the resignation of a U.S. attorney who was pressured to embrace then-President Trump's election law. A former U.S. attorney in Atlanta has given Senate investigators a new window into President Trump's efforts to undermine his election laws in Georgia. He testified he decided to quit his post after learning Trump was considering firing him because he refused to embrace the president's big lie. Let's get a reaction now from the Georgia Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger. Mr. Secretary, thanks so much for your time. What goes through your mind hearing former President Trump plan to fire this U.S. attorney in Georgia, B.J. Pak, for refusing to overturn the election results in your state? What did you make of that story when you saw that?
In some respects, I wasn't surprised, but I served in the House with B.J. Pak. The man has incredible integrity. He's a very sharp lawyer, and he was looking, and he didn't see any fraud there, nothing that would ever overturn the election. He's a person of integrity. He should have been believed.
And you face similar pressure from then President Trump in a January 2nd phone call that we've all heard. The former president, referred to B.J. Pak as a never-Trumper during that portion of the call. Let's play that moment for our viewers because it's one of those moments that I don't think a lot of people remember.
I mean, look, you'd have to be a child to think anything other than that. Just a child. I mean, you have your never-Trumper attorney there.
Mr. Secretary, isn't this more evidence that Trump was pressuring other officials besides just yourself, that he was leaning on B.J. Pak and yourself and other officials around the country, former vice president and so on, to try to overturn these election results?
Well, time has proven that you're right, that pressure was put in many different states, many different officials, elected officials and otherwise. But at the end of the day, after B.J. Pak resigned, Bobby Christine came up from the Southern District, the U.S. attorney there. He was actually on my absentee ballot fraud task force. And as soon as he got here, he did his own research. He said there was nothing here.
And let me ask you, have you been contacted by the January 6th Select Committee that is looking into what happened at the insurrection on the Capitol, and have they requested your testimony?
No, they haven't reached out to me.
And if